Hey there, TigerShark here again with Okano. Man, I had a hard time finding a game to play this week. Maybe I was just feeling a little extra picky, I don't know. Anyway, I ended up settling on a game called Witch Blast. It's a little action roguelike inspired by The Binding of Isaac. I've spent countless hours in The Binding of Isaac, so of course I had to try it. In this one, you play as a novice mage who I think is trying to rescue the Archmage's daughter. The character kinda looks like a sleepy student who just rolled out of bed to enter this dungeon, and I love that. If you've played The Binding of Isaac, it functions basically identically. You walk from room to room defeating all the enemies in order to proceed to the next one. Once you get a key, you can open the boss door and then proceed to the next floor. The basic rooms and items are randomized, but the bosses don't seem to be. I played a few times and I got the same bosses every run. I only got to the third boss. Based on the trailer, I'm definitely missing a good amount of content, but I needed to take a break and write this review. I could see myself sinking a lot of time into this if I was motivated, which I'm not in this moment, but maybe I'll come back to it. I love The Binding of Isaac, and this is basically more of that, so it's a solid recommend from me. I'll mention a couple other things I liked before I get into the negatives. Something The Binding of Isaac is missing that this game has is a speed up button. It makes time move faster in the game, which is not good for combat, but it's super useful if you want to run back to previous rooms to pick up items or go to the shop or something like that. There are rooms you can find with altars in them. At these altars, you can dedicate yourself to various deities. As you defeat enemies or donate money to the altars, you can level up your devotion to gain bonus stats. This is a really cool addition. It's not a huge boost, but it gives a sense of progression even when you're not picking up good items. And sometimes the god will intervene on your behalf and stop you from dying, which is also really cool. I also have to mention the intro sequence when you open up the game. Here it is so you can see it. It cracks me up. But as usual, I do have to talk about the things I didn't like. I don't like constantly comparing games to other games, but when the developer literally says in the description that it was heavily inspired by The Binding of Isaac, then I'm going to keep comparing them. One thing I like about Witch Blast is that if you pick up a potion, then you can also pick up an identify scroll to see what it does. But the problem after that is it seems like you can't drop the potion if it has a negative effect. In The Binding of Isaac, if you pick up a pill or a tarot card that you don't want to use, you can pick up a different one to replace it. Seemingly you can't do that in this one, so you end up stuck with a crappy item taking up a slot. Maybe I missed a hotkey or something for that, but I don't know. Another thing this game needs is more enemy variety. It wasn't terrible, but fighting the same rats and bats got kind of boring pretty quickly. Again, comparing the two games. In The Binding of Isaac, you really quickly will find yourself fighting some really weird and insane enemy types. That's one of the things that gives the game its charm. Yes, there are spiders and bats and things, but there are like 20 different types of spiders and bats that are all unique. There are bugs, deformed Isaac clones, floating hearts, literal sperm cells. In Witch Blast, the enemies are just kinda bland, so far anyway. Maybe I just haven't gotten far enough into it. Also, the items so far just seem to be stat boosts for the most part. I want items that change my playstyle. Isaac can get lasers, missiles, charged vomit attacks. I'm not trying to crap all over this game, I'm just sharing my thoughts. The dev is literally asking for a comparison to The Binding of Isaac by telling us that's where the inspiration came from. I think Witch Blast is really good for a free roguelike. I enjoyed it, and I think it's worth playing if you like this kind of game. There is some humor in it and some really good ideas, but it's going to be hard to live up to a big name like The Binding of Isaac. Oh, I do have one more thought on Witch Blast. I think the fist-pumping animation when the character picks up items is funny, but I absolutely hate the sound effect that goes with it. It makes the character seem like a douchebag frat boy, and I don't like that. I guess that does kind of go along with my assessment of him as a student who got 3 hours of sleep and just rolled out of bed to save the world or whatever, which is still funny. Anyway, I guess that's all I've got. I give this one a recommend, and I hope my critiques didn't sound too harsh. The link will be in the description as usual. So that's all for this one, and as always, I hope you have a spectacular day. I have other channels and projects that I would love for you to check out. I have a second channel called Drawing with TigerShark, where I illustrate movies I haven't seen based on the Wikipedia description. I have an EP on Spotify called 5,555 Miles as my one-man band called Power Mouse. And finally, I have a clothing brand called Studio Duck Apparel featuring original artwork that I create myself. The links to these things will all be in the description.